This is a special announcement. We are heading to RSAC conference in San Francisco for our 11th years of coverage, April 28, May 1st.
And as always, we'll bring you keynotes, conversations with organizers, speakers, industry leaders, plus the latest insights from the world of cybersecurity.
And we'll reconnect with old friends, meet new ones, and of course, we want you and your company to join us.
We have a few spots left for full sponsorship and our on-location briefings. You can book yours now at ITSPmagazine.com/RSAC.
We're going.
And you're coming with us.
Hey, Sean, do you know what? I think that our listener want real protection against cyber risk. And I know that HITRUST is the leader in cybersecurity assurance. But what makes them the go-to choice?
Well, according to our friends at HITRUST, because their framework covers 100% of the known tactics, techniques, and procedures, in 2024, organizations with a HITRUST certification had just a 0.59% incident rate, meaning 99.41 stayed breach-free.
That's solid, but what about staying sharp over time?
HITRUST regular certification process isn't just a checkbox, it actually drives improvement. Repeat customers see up to 54% fewer corrective actions needed year over year. And now with their new AI security assessment and certification, you can actually tackle AI risk with confidence as well.
Then check out the HITRUST framework. Go to hightrustalliance.net to learn more.
Marco,
Sean,
you ready to roll?
I am always ready to
got the
roll,
counts?
and I feel very important because
You're
I'm in
the
this
king's
chair.
That's
Oh,
right.
nice.
I'm in the king chair.
That's right.
So,
I had the king chair earlier.
I know.
It's a nice chair.
I was
'Cause
jealous.
You have the armrest.
I was jealous, so I wanted to have it. I feel much more important and serious.
If you were nice, you would have given our lovely guest the
You
king
can, you
chair.
can put it on each other.
You're half a king. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh man! Again, RSA conference
Right.
2025. We are very excited to be here. It feels like we've been on this conference for a month because we do a lot of pre-event conversations, but now we're here for real,
I know.
in person,
Yeah.
with a good friend
Yeah.
that I don't know how many podcasts we've done together, at least two.
At least two together. Yeah.
Yeah, we met through our good friend Julie Haney.
Yeah.
From
Yeah,
NIST.
yeah.
Shout out to Julie.
Yeah, indeed, we did.
And,
All the way from the UK.
Yes, it was a
Jason.
long flight here.
No entertainment, I heard.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You were the entertainment, I heard.
Yeah, there was no entertainment on the flight, which when it's an 11-hour flight, it's twice as long when there's nothing to watch.
But you had a lot to think about the event.
A lot to think about, a lot to plan for. I'm the sort of person that I had my schedule decked out before I arrived, so yeah, really excited, really excited.
Very good.
And so maybe not, or unless you want to, but did you come up with the memorable thing on the flight, or or is that already baked into?
It's probably already baked in.
Okay.
Like one thing, to be honest, I was probably the most surprised by is how early I need to submit slides for RSA. I mean, they've been done for a while and ready to go. So it's really just a case of getting ready to prepare them and present them.
Very good. Well, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Who are you? Why are you here?
Right. So in simple terms, my name is Dr. Jason Nurse. I do research in cybersecurity, especially looking at the human aspect of cybersecurity. That's my specialist, that's my research area. I'm part academic, and I also work in a tech startup as well. And I'm here at RSA to deliver a talk specifically on understanding people's security attitudes and behaviors. So basically, why do people think what they think about security? Why do people behave how they behave? And how do attitudes, so how people think about security, actually impacts their day-to-day behavior?
And this is for people in the work environment,
Yep.
or are you also thinking about society at large?
So it's both, actually. And it's really good because it allows us to explore people's personal lives and how people think and are behaving with security at home, but then also, people's work lives and how are they thinking and behaving about security in work. So it covers both of them. It's a really exciting study.
And does the attitude change?
It does change a bit, actually. Weirdly enough, it does change. At home, people very much care about their personal lives, their families. At work, what's really interesting is that sometimes people sort of almost think that they can leave the security to their employer. And that's even one of the most interesting dynamics that came out of the research.
I was actually reading something about that and having a couple of chats, because that's the reason why we talk, because it's the human aspect of cybersecurity, which is more my cup of tea. And like when people are so obsessed and regulated by being cyber secure, being told what to do or work, then they go home and they're like, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. It's a really interesting dynamic and different people approach security in really, really different ways. In that some people will think like that, and some people will think, okay, the security's done, I'm at home now, I can just chill out, I can chill out with my family. But unfortunately, cyber criminals don't think like that, and they are really keen to jump on and pounce on any opportunity that arises, whether someone is at work or whether someone's at home.
Yep.
Yeah, and we've had many conversations on this topic in terms of the secure environment at home, because many times devices that are owned by the business are at home, or devices that are owned by the individual are used at work, or vice versa. And family members jump on and access social media and other applications, which it all gets intertwined. So the mindset and the desire to be secure kind of needs to be the same across the board, I think.
In an ideal world, yes. And I think, to be honest, what really changed things and really brought things home is the COVID period, where it's not a period that we often like to talk about too much, but because everyone was working out from at home, because people had basically to use sometimes home technology for work, or definitely work technology at home, it created this sort of really new way of how people sort of approach work and thought about work in the context of, well, yeah, I can work a bit and then I can do other stuff, but then even when you think about people's work devices, all of a sudden people started to use their work devices to watch Netflix, to download stuff, to shop, to go to certain websites. And I think it's an interesting it's interesting reality in terms of how that played out, and now the relationship that people have with personal technology and actually work technology as well.
Yeah. Well, that's why more and more we say cybersecurity is a mindset, where a culture, where you embrace it, then you realize that there's not on and off. You just need to be cautious all the time.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because it is the name of the game now. As I mentioned, attackers are opportunistic. They want to get us wherever they can get us, regardless of where we are. So, even in the context of that research, it was really about trying to understand how people think about security from the perspective that it is very much a mindset. It is very much how people think about security influence how they behave. But then the reality is that, and this is one thing that I think is really, really important, that sometimes we as a security community we gloss over, in that understanding people's behavior is, there's a lot of research in terms of psychology and behavioral science that we can draw on in security to better understand that mindset and better understand people's behavior, and then use that to hopefully make things better in the context of security for individuals.
So I'm glad you went there, because I mean, it's one thing to look at how many attacks in the SOC, let's say, how many attacks were attempted, how many were successful, what was the lateral movement beyond that, how quickly did you respond, how quickly there's a lot of stuff we can measure and analyze. When you start talking about the human mind and how people think and how they respond to actions that they encounter or things that are thrown their way, it's a little less, at least for me, it's a little less obvious. It seems a little more fuzzy. So talk to us a little bit about the research and how you look at behavior and how you look at mindset, and how can you measure that to determine what do we do in response to how people think and function?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the context of this research, we did it, in the context of all research, you can measure it in very, very different ways. In the context of this research, what we essentially did was relied on a self-report study. So we developed a set of kind of key questions to better understand how people perceive security and how people think about security, people's attitudes, people's beliefs. And then we took that, and we also asked questions, once again, questions to individuals directly about how are they behaving on a day-to-day basis. And we basically took these, we did this research, actually surveyed over 7,000 people across the globe. What was really interesting about this research this year as well is that we got the 5 Eyes, which for us is always something we wanted to do. We wanted to get that sort of global representation. So we asked people these questions, and we got a load of interesting data that really pointed to and helped us understand to what extent do people view security as a priority. To what extent do people think that security is actually possible, like day-to-day security is possible? And what we found were things like, well, the average individual, actually about 40% or 43% of individuals, they think security is great, but they find security extremely intimidating. They find security extremely frustrating. And I think for me, that's a really interesting one, because it helps point to the fact that when we say people aren't motivated or people aren't acting as we want as it relates to security, well, the reality is that deep down, people actually think security is really, really difficult. And it's really, really tricky, and it's really, really challenging. And sometimes in the security space, we potentially use terms that are a bit too opaque for the average individual. And that doesn't help with this bridging this gap, and it doesn't help make people want to be more aware about security or security practices and actually put those good practices in place.
Yeah. So how does a Kit Kat come into play?
A Kit Kat, yeah, great question.
You have to bring the food in.
Yeah, I mean, Kit Kat, amazing. I think what was really interesting, so I delivered my talk, it went on really, really well. Actually, it was super exciting to see that many people in the room. So I was trying to explain, and because I think it's really important to always have a mid-ground between myself and the audience. And there was this one slide in particular where I was trying to help people understand the fact that knowledge about something can impact people, what people's attitudes are towards something, and then that can impact people's behavior. So the example I chose to use that I thought would resonate with the audience quite well is Kit Kats.
And it did, right?
And it did, right? So Kit Kats, I love a Kit Kat, and I know that Kit Kats are delicious. That influences my attitude towards Kit Kats. Okay, they're delicious. I want them. I want to get, if I see one, give me a Kit Kat. And then, of course, that behavior such that, well, if I see a Kit Kat or if I see a Kit Kat stand or something like that, well, yeah, I'm going to go and grab a Kit Kat. And so knowledge can impact people's attitudes, and attitudes can impact behavior. And that was the example I chose to give in the talk. And what I thought was really interesting is that as I was walking over here, actually, through a really, really crowded, you know how RSA is, super crowded, I'm just trying to make my way through a sea of people. This person comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you're Jason, the Kit Kat guy." And I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, yeah, that's me. And he's like, "Love your talk." And he just continued walking. And I thought, wow, okay, you know what? It resonated with him. And that's important, because that resonation is important. I'm hoping that he took away other stuff from the talk, but that resonation is important. And that's how Kit Kats come into play.
So is your point to say we need to make cybersecurity cooler, more delicious, more as of an enjoyable practice?
I think we need to understand, one, why people find it frustrating and intimidating, and we need to help bridge that gap. And it could be a case of, yes, making it more delicious for the average person. There's certainly an argument for that, more fun. But also there's an argument that, and this is another one I think is actually particularly important, we need to always ensure that technology gets better such that it takes away some of those really difficult choices for individuals. Like one thing I really loved, and I do a lot of research in the context of usable security, and one thing I really loved was, and what I continue to love, is biometrics. When we think about Face ID and stuff like this. And when we think about, well, logging into your mobile phone or putting in a 10-digit PIN, it's not usable, right? So they'll just ignore pins. But now, we thankfully, at least with mobile phones, we've reached a point where you just take up your phone, have a look, it authenticates you automatically, and it logs you in. So technology has gotten to the point.
Even you don't have to look
yeah,
anymore.
Exactly, right.
As soon as you lift it, it's
exactly. So technology has gotten to the point where it's extremely usable, and it still has that good level of security. And I think all security essentially needs to be like that. So it isn't a blocker, it isn't a hindrance, it doesn't cause issues, it doesn't make people frustrated, but it works, and it works well, and it's still secure.
Right. So the process and the workflow is not interrupted.
Yeah.
And the security aspects of it are almost hidden.
Yeah.
This, I don't know, it's probably 25 years ago I looked at some of this stuff, and one of the research we're doing then for usability was around hiding it, but showing it when it was necessary.
Yes, that's
so
the trick.
Talk to me about that. When do you want to share something, and maybe even about the language, because you touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
What do we say or what do we show when we want to display something?
Yeah, great question. And I think for me, so probably about 10 years or so ago, I did a good amount of research on cybersecurity risk communication, how to communicate risk. And I think this was really interesting for a number of reasons. But to your point, one analogy I would like to point, and it's just a really great example to this, is the padlock in browsers, right?
Right.
So we all were familiar with the padlock, and padlock emerged, and everyone got to know that the padlock is that's how you show a website. For many people, the whole website is secure. Doesn't exactly mean that, but let's play along, right? Let's play along. And that detail was shown because it was viewed as important to show people the padlock, because that detail was important. And if you wanted to find out more, you can click on the padlock and you can see certificate information.
Right.
Average person doesn't care, doesn't need to know. And what have browsers done now? Generally speaking, browsers don't have the padlock anymore because that detail isn't viewed as important to show anymore.
Right.
And I think, yes, you can still click and there's another button you can press and you can see certificate information. But I think now the key thing, and that's where it's really, really interesting in that, yes, we have to, as much as possible, make security easier, make security more usable. But for those people that want to know more, they should have the option of drilling down. They should have the option of getting that detail. Someone that wants to know, hey, is this website secure? What's going on?
Right.
Can I see certificate information? They can get that.
So I think early on with the padlock and some of the other stuff I was talking about, the challenge was security was added and not part of.
Yep.
And I think we still see a lot of that. You have systems and applications, and then security teams come in and try to, they add the authentication and the access control, and they add the monitoring and the alerting and the blocking and all that stuff on top of it.
Yeah.
Does your research uncover anything there that we as an industry and as developers of technology beyond security need to consider?
I think probably the one that resonates the most right now is just security around AI systems. I mean, I don't think I could have probably done this talk without mentioning AI or generative AI in some way.
There we go.
We're
I
done.
apologize.
We're done. You said AI.
I apologize. But the reality is that as it relates to AI systems, as it relates to how AI is used, the security of it is more and more important, simply because of how much is embedded in almost everything that we're doing. I mean, we're in San Francisco, amazing. One of the two things that resonated with me most since I've actually been here is the driverless cars.
There you go.
Right? I mean, like, it has been incredible. Like, you know, just I think there was one point in time where I was walking down the street, I saw this car passing, and I just had a glance to my left because the car looked a bit different. I didn't really know what it was. I looked in the front seat, and there was no one, and the car was moving, and I was,
Yep.
what's going on here?
And then
comes another. Yeah. There are quite a few of them, right? And you know, for me, when we think about this in terms of security and AI, it's just so important because now we have these systems that are driving cars, and for me, it's really important in terms of security because they're driving cars, which means that they're responsible for devices, technology that could potentially significantly harm individuals, right? So I think that for me is why it's becoming more important, and the average person, you know, has access to more AI than probably many people have had in the last 10 years.
So I'm gonna follow with that because I've been driving around San Francisco, so dealing with very polite self-driving cars, a lot more polite than Italian driving, and I saw many different kind of people actually getting in the car. I saw a family with a really small child. It means they really trust the car, right? So the question for me to you, and is the last one because we're running out, is how do you know if people are trusting or they just gave up?
I mean, that's probably, that's an interesting one for a last question. I think personally that people are trusting to some extent. Personally, for me, I think that there's a fair amount of novelty. There's a fair amount of novelty in it, in that people will try this stuff out because, hey, I can film this, I can talk to my friends about it, I can. But I think trust is a big one. And for me, sometimes I've found, especially based on my research, that sometimes people are willing to give up a bit of trust for novelty, for using that new thing, to be using that new product, using that new device. For me, especially these days where, you know, the reality is that, you know, we're all very open to shouting about stuff as much as possible, especially if it maybe isn't the thing that we should shout about. So it's tricky. I'd love to see how, I hopefully will see how driverless cars continue to take over maybe the US and maybe the world, but let's see. But really great question.
Yeah. Last year I got to drive when our good friend Laz booked a car, and I got to drive, and it was quite incredible. There were little nuances that the car would do something that a human wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because it was so precise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the interesting thing for me was I felt safe because I wasn't at speed and I was inside the car.
Can I make one last
Yes.
point? One last point. So two instances yesterday that as I was walking around that I found actually super interesting. So I love technology. I'm a technology person, so I 100% would try them. However, I was walking to a crossing and one was coming down an alley. And even though I would get in it, I'd definitely try it. I got to the crossing and literally I hesitated because I was thinking to myself, hey, do I want to walk in front of this? Because will it stop at the crossing or not? I don't know. So I walked very tentatively towards it and then it slowed down. But it was interesting for me, as a sort of almost social experiment, because I would get into it, but here I am now not wanting to walk in front of it. And then lastly, just really, really quick, once again, yesterday I was watching one of the driverless cars that was turning right at a junction. And there was this person walking in front and they were on a crossing. So they were on a crossing walking, the driverless car was waiting for them to finish across to turn right. They stopped and they jumped back. And that made the driverless car immediately slam brakes. And what did they do? They just looked at it and laughed because they did it intentionally and they just continued walking. So once again, it's how people engage with new technologies, the perception of new technologies. So I think, we're going to see all of that playing out in the next couple of years.
Yet, I wonder if somebody is actually going to stop and is not distracted by watching their phone or drinking their coffee.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to trust the car driverless even more. But we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
We're going to go drive a car with a Kit Kat.
Yeah, you
and we're
should
going
do
to
that.
have a good time.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds
All
good to
right.
me.
This is the end for this conversation. We'll have many more, of course we do. And many more right here. RSA Conference 2025.
Yeah.
Sean, you're up for more.
ITSPmagazine.com/RSAC25 for all of our coverage. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
This is a special announcement. We are heading to RSA Conference in San Francisco for our 11th years of coverage, April 28, May 1st.
And as always, we'll bring you keynotes, conversations with organizers, speakers, industry leaders, plus the latest insights from the world of cybersecurity.
And we'll reconnect with old friends, meet new ones, and of course, we want you and your company to join us.
We have a few spots left for full sponsorship and our on-location briefings. You can book yours now at ITSPmagazine.com/RSAC.
We're going.
And you're coming with us.
Hey, Sean, do you know what? I think that our listener want real protection against cyber risk, and I know that HITRUST is the leader in cybersecurity assurance. But what makes them the go-to choice?
Well, according to our friends at HITRUST, because their framework covers 100% of the known tactics, techniques, and procedures, in 2024, organizations with a HITRUST certification had just a 0.59% incident rate, meaning 99.41 stayed breach-free.
That's solid, but what about staying sharp over time?
HITRUST regular certification process isn't just a checkbox, it actually drives improvement. Repeat customers see up to 54% fewer corrective actions needed year over year. And now with their new AI security assessment and certification, you can actually tackle AI risk with confidence as well.
Then check out the HITRUST framework. Go to hitrustalliance.net to learn more.